Coffee Break. Thoughtful conversations for a busy world. Let's begin.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually when we sit down at these microphones, we're looking outward.
Right.
We're tearing apart, the nuances of global supply chains or the history of a specific technology or market dynamics. We're so used to looking at systems.
External systems, yeah.
But today feels a little different. Today, we are turning the microscope around 180 degrees.
It is a shift in perspective, absolutely. We're looking right at the listener, and, well, honestly, we're looking in the mirror, too.
We really are. We are dissecting a source titled The Evolution of the Outdated Self. And I have to be honest with you and with everyone listening, when I first read through this material, I had to physically put my coffee down.
Oh, I believe it.
And just stare at the wall for a solid 5 minutes. And it wasn't because the concepts were incredibly complex academic theories. It was because they were uncomfortably accurate.
It's the kind of material that doesn't just inform you. It sort of, It reads you.
Yeah.
It exposes a specific type of friction that I think a lot of high-functioning adults live with, but rarely articulate.
Exactly. And I want to hit everyone with the core premise right off the bat, because this is the hook that got me. This is what made me put the coffee down. The source boils it down to one devastatingly simple sentence. You evolved. Your self-image didn't.
It is a short sentence, but the implications are just massive. You evolved.
Yeah.
Your self-image didn't.
It's the idea that we are walking around, operating our lives, doing our jobs, raising families, handling crises, but we are doing it on old software.
Old software, yes.
It's like we have upgraded the hardware, we are adults, we are capable, we have the skills, but the operating system running the show is still like Windows 95.
And we're wondering why we keep crashing.
And we're wondering why we keep getting the blue screen of death internally, even when things look fine on the outside.
That is the perfect analogy. And the mission of this deep dive, really, is to figure out the mechanics of that glitch. We want to understand why adults who have objectively grown, who have achieved new things, who have changed their circumstances, still introduce themselves to the world, and more importantly to themselves, using an old story.
I want to clarify exactly who we are talking to here, because this isn't necessarily for the person who feels totally lost or broken.
No, not at all.
This is for the person who has technically made it. Maybe you got the promotion you worked 10 years for.
Okay.
Maybe you finally started that business. Maybe you got out of a toxic relationship and you're in a healthy one. On paper, the stats have changed. You are a new character.
Objectively, yes.
But internally, you still feel like the person who was struggling. You still feel like the underdog or the victim or the novice.
That is a specific disconnect we are analyzing. It is the gap between your reality, the objective facts of your life, and your perception of that reality. And I want to set a very strict ground rule immediately, based on the source material.
Oh, I like this.
We are going to have a no spiritual buzzwords rule today.
Thank goodness. I think if I hear the word manifest one more time, I might actually lose it.
We are on the same page. This isn't about manifesting a new you. This isn't about raising your vibration or quantum leaping into another reality.
Oh, no.
We are looking at this through the lens of cognitive psychology and behavioral adaptation. This is about cognitive dissonance. It is about the neuroscience of why the brain prefers an outdated familiar map to a new, accurate one. It is about the mechanics of identity, not the metaphysics of it.
I love that. Practical, actionable, grounded in how our brains actually work. So let's lay out the roadmap for this hour. We're going to start by unpacking this concept of lag time. Why does the brain take so long to catch up to reality? Then we're going to do a bit of an archaeological dig into the origin story. Where did this outdated version of us come from? Spoiler alert, it usually comes from survival mode. Then we'll examine the symptoms. How does this identity lag actually sabotage you at work or in your relationships? And finally, the most important part, we're going to talk about the update process. How do we actually install the new software?
It is a comprehensive look at what I would call identity lag. It's the term the source uses, and it's perfect.
Identity lag. Let's start right there. Part 1, the core problem. So the source uses this phrase, and it uses an analogy about starlight that I found incredibly helpful for visualizing this. Can you break that down for us?
Of course. It's a beautiful, if slightly melancholic concept from astrophysics. Think about the night sky. When you look up and see a star, let's say Betelgeuse or Sirius, You aren't seeing that star as it is right this second.
Right, because of the distance.
You're seeing the light that left that star years, decades, or even centuries ago.
Because light, fast as it is, still takes time to travel across the universe.
Exactly. The distance is so vast that there's a delay, a lag. If a star exploded 5 minutes ago, we wouldn't know it here on Earth for a long, long time. We would still be navigating by a light that technically no longer exists in that form.
We are looking at a ghost.
We're looking at ghosts of the past.
Okay, so applying this to our psychology, I am the star in this scenario. My actual current self is the star.
You are the star.
Yeah.
And your self-image, the way you perceive yourself, the internal narrative you run about who am I, that's the observer on Earth.
Wow.
You might have exploded into a completely new level of capability, success, or emotional maturity 5 years ago, but the light that is reaching your internal observer, it's still the light from 10 years ago. You are viewing yourself through a massive delay.
That explains so much. It really does. It explains that weird dissociation where you can look at your own resume, see senior director or head of strategy, see the list of accomplishments, but when you walk into the boardroom, you don't feel like that person.
Not at all.
You feel like the intern who needs to ask permission to use the restroom.
Precisely. That is the old story dynamic. The source points this out specifically regarding career progression, which is, well, it's where we see it most clearly in a lot of cases. We have this habit of introducing ourselves and navigating the world based on past constraints rather than current capabilities.
I do this. I totally do this. If someone asks me what I do, even now, sometimes I find myself downplaying it. Or I'll frame it in a way that sounds tentative. Oh, I'm sort of trying to do this podcast thing instead of I run a successful media production.
That is the lag.
Yeah.
That is it in real time. You are consulting an internal database that hasn't been updated. The source gives a great example of adults viewing themselves through the lens of past jobs. You see this a lot in people who pivoted careers.
Oh, 100%.
Someone might have been a struggling artist or a gig worker for 10 years dealing with inconsistent income and, low status. Now, they run a successful graphic design firm with 12 employees. But when they talk to a potential client, they still have the defensiveness or the scarcity mindset of the struggling freelancer.
They're still worried the check won't clear.
Exactly. They haven't realized, oh, wait, I'm the boss now. I set the terms.
It's like the brain has cached the old identity because it's easier than rendering the new one every single morning. It's an efficiency thing.
That's exactly what it is. It's an efficiency mechanism. But it becomes dangerous when we hold on to old mistakes as defining character traits. That was another point the source made that I think is absolutely critical.
Right. The difference between a historical event and a character trait. Let's unpack that because that feels huge.
Okay, so let's say 10 years ago, you were terrible with money. You were impulsive. You didn't understand budgeting. Maybe you racked up some credit card debt. That is a historical fact. It is an event that happened in time. It's in the past.
It's a data point.
It is a data point.
Yeah.
But for many people, that historical fact solidifies into a permanent identity marker. I am bad with money.
Even if they've had a savings account, an investment portfolio, and a perfect credit score for the last 5 years.
Exactly. The behavior changed. The reality changed. The facts on the ground are completely different. But the identity didn't. They are still operating with the I am bad with money identity.
So what does that do to them now?
Well, it makes them anxious. They check their bank account 5 times a day. They feel guilty spending money on necessities, let alone something nice for themselves. They might undercharge for their services because they don't feel worthy of real money. They are operating in a reality that no longer exists.
It creates this invisible ceiling. That's what it feels like to me. It's not just that you lack confidence. That's too simple. It's that you are working with bad data. It's an integrity issue with your own internal information.
Correct. It is a data integrity issue. Think about it. If you are making decisions for a person who no longer exists, you are going to make suboptimal decisions.
Of course.
You are going to play small because the old you needed to play small to stay safe. But the new you has the capacity, the resources, the skill to play big. The gap between those two is where the frustration lives. It's where that feeling of imposter syndrome really festers.
So if we know this is a glitch, we need to understand the code that wrote it in the first place.
We have to.
Let's move to part 2, the origin story. Because we didn't just decide to be insecure or to have this lag for fun. The source talks heavily about survival mode.
This is the compassionate part of the deep dive, and I think it's so important we pause here and really let this sink in. We have to understand that this outdated identity wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a flaw. It was a solution.
A solution to what?
A solution to a problem you faced in the past. At some point in your life, you faced a set of circumstances that required a specific version of you to survive. Maybe it was financial instability, maybe it was a volatile family dynamic, maybe it was a health crisis. You curated a personality and a set of behaviors to navigate that minefield.
You built a suit of armor for a specific battle.
A perfect way to put it. You built armor.
Yeah.
And it worked. It got you through.
Let's look at the specific contexts, mention the source, because I think listeners will identify with at least one of these. The first one was financial or career survival.
Right. So let's go back to that person who spent their 20s broke. To survive being broke, you have to be hyper-vigilant about money. You have to say no to opportunities because they cost money, going out with friends, taking a weekend trip.
Right, you can't afford it.
You have to view every expense as a threat. You develop a scarcity armor. That strategy works. It keeps you alive. It keeps the lights on.
But then fast forward, you get the job, you get the promotion, the bank account is healthy, the war is over.
But the armor stays on. You are now making 6 figures, but you still panic when you buy brand name coffee. Or, more significantly, you refuse to invest in resources that would help you grow, like hiring an assistant or taking a professional development course, because your internal rule is, we don't spend money on non-essentials. The strategy that saved you is now the strategy that is limiting you. You are bringing a starvation mindset to a banquet.
That is so clear. What of the family roles context? This one feels deeper, maybe harder to scrub out because it's so primal. It's formed when you're a kid.
Family roles are often the hardest to shake because they are formed when our brains are still developing, when our view of the world is literally being constructed. In many families, children unconsciously adopt a role to keep the family system stable.
Like what kind of roles?
Maybe you were the peacemaker because your parents fought constantly, and you learned that if you were agreeable and quiet, things would calm down faster. Maybe you were the invisible one because a sibling had very high needs or an addiction issue, and you learned that the safest thing to do was not need anything yourself.
Or the opposite.
Or the opposite, the achiever, because that was the only way to get affection or attention. You had to earn your place with good grades or athletic trophies.
And so 30 years later, you're in a high-stakes corporate meeting. 2 colleagues start arguing about a budget. And suddenly, you aren't a 40-year-old executive. You're the 10-year-old peacemaker trying to smooth things over so dad doesn't yell.
Exactly. You default to the oldest code in your system. You might prioritize keeping the peace over making the right business decision because your survival identity, your core programming, says conflict is dangerous. I must fix it.
But in your current reality, as a leader, conflict might be healthy. It might be necessary for innovation. But your identity lag won't let you see that. It just sees a threat.
It sees a threat from 1995.
And what about crisis management mode? I feel like a lot of people got stuck in this over the last few years.
Absolutely. If you went through a specific hard time, a messy divorce, a health scare, a sudden layoff, you develop traits to get through that. Just grit, head down, don't feel anything, just work.
Bunker mode.
Bunker mode. It is incredibly effective for a crisis. It conserves energy and focuses output. But you can't live in a bunker forever. The war eventually ends. The crisis passes. But you stay in the bunker.
And you wonder why you can't connect with people or feel joy.
Because you're still graced for impact. The source calls this the adaptation trap. The deep irony is that the traits that saved you then are the exact traits limiting you now.
The traits that saved you then are the traits limiting you now. That's the tweet. That's the bumper sticker for this whole deep dive.
It is the crux of the issue. The brain prefers a familiar, outdated map to a new, uncharted one. And you have to ask why.
Why?
Because the old map, even if it led to misery and anxiety, is proven. You survived using that map. The brain looks at the new map where you are confident, wealthy, or happy and says, I don't have any data on this. This looks risky. Let's go back to being the quiet one. We know we survived being the quiet one.
It's a safety mechanism. It's not self-sabotage, really. When people say self-sabotage, it sounds so malicious. It's misplaced safety.
Precisely. The old version of you wasn't wrong. It wasn't broken. It was necessary for that time. We have to honor that. We have to look back and say, thank you, survival self, for getting me through 2015. You did an amazing job.
Right.
But you are not qualified to run the company in 2026.
Man, you are not qualified to run the company in 2026. That is powerful. Okay, so we know why it happens. It's biological, it's evolutionary, it makes sense. Now I want to talk about what it looks like in the wild.
The symptoms.
Part 3, symptoms of the outdated self. Because I think people might be listening and thinking, well, maybe I do this, maybe I don't. Let's give them the diagnostic criteria.
The most common one, and the one the source spends the most time on, is staying small, particularly in professional environments.
The source describes a scenario that I think everyone can relate to, sitting in a meeting where you are the expert, literally you are the person paid to know the answer, yet you are waiting for permission to speak.
This is a classic symptom. Your external reality is expert, but the internal identity still feels like a junior employee. It feels like a child at the adult's table, even though logically you know you are the authority.
And so you don't speak up. Or if you do,
You might couch your ideas in tentative language. I might be wrong, but, or this is probably a stupid idea, but, or the big one. Does that make sense?
oh, does that make sense? I say it all the time. It's like I'm asking for validation that I'm coherent, that I'm not crazy.
Exactly. It's a tell. It's a verbal tick that reveals the identity lag. The source makes a really interesting distinction here about imposter syndrome.
Right.
It says this isn't just standard imposter syndrome.
How is it different?
Imposter syndrome is usually defined as I'm a fraud and they will find me out. There's a fear of being exposed.
Right.
Identity lag is more subtle. It's more like, I am not this person yet. It's not that you feel you aren't qualified. It's that you haven't updated your internal resume. You are literally surprised when people treat you with the respect your position commands. You look behind you like, who are they talking to?
Yes. Why are they asking me to lead this project? Don't they know I'm... And then you fill in the blank with the old label. Don't they know I'm just the assistant? Even though you haven't been an assistant for a decade.
And that leads directly to the second symptom, the weight of old labels and letting others define you. This happens frequently when we go back to our hometowns or hang out with very old friends. The source doesn't call it this, but I call it the Thanksgiving effect.
Oh, the regression. You walk through your parents' front door and your IQ drops 20 points and you're suddenly a teenager again.
Right. You might be a CEO, a sophisticated thinker, a calm and collected parent in your daily life. But you go back to that environment and suddenly you are the messy one, or the flake, or the party animal from college.
And the source implies that we take it. We let it happen. We accept these projections.
We accept them because our own self-image hasn't been strong enough to overwrite them. It's a passive acceptance. If you haven't clearly and consciously defined who you are now, you will default to who they tell you you are. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you don't occupy your identity, someone else's memory of you will occupy it for you.
That is chilling. If you don't occupy your identity, someone else's memory of you will. It's like we are ghosts in our own lives if we aren't careful.
It is exactly that. And the third symptom reinforces this entire system, holding on to past failures. This is the confirmation bias of the outdated self.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means your outdated identity acts like a filter for your memories and experiences. It's actively looking for proof that it's still correct.
And the question the source asks is, why do we remember the one time we messed up a presentation 5 years ago better than the 50 times we succeeded since then?
Because the outdated self is looking for evidence to support its existence. If your internal identity is, I am an awkward public speaker, your brain will actively scan for evidence of awkwardness. It will spotlight that one stumble in 2018 and completely ignore the standing ovation you got in 2023.
So it's not just bad memory, it's an active filtering process.
It ignores the new data because the new data contradicts the core hypothesis. The hypothesis is, I am awkward. The standing ovation is an anomaly. The brain throws it out.
It's rigging the jury.
It is. It is rejecting the anomalies to keep the model of the world intact, even if the anomalies are actually your new normal.
So we have this lag, we have these symptoms, we know what it comes from. But why is it so hard to change? Part 4, the resistance. Because every time I try to act different, even if different is actually more accurate to who I am now, I feel fake. I feel like a phony.
The authenticity paradox. This is the biggest hurdle to updating the self, and the source tackles this head on. We have this cultural obsession with keeping it real and remembering where you came from.
Right. Stay true to yourself.
And those are good things, but we misinterpret them. We think staying true to yourself means stay true to the 19-year-old version of yourself. So when we try to change our behavior, to act more confident or set a boundary, a voice in our head says, who do you think you are? You're acting. This isn't the real you.
Right. Don't get big for your britches. Don't forget you used to deliver pizzas for a living. That kind of internal monologue.
But the source offers a rebuttal that I find incredibly liberating. It says, updating your identity isn't fake. It is necessary. And here is the analogy used that just clicked everything into place for me. heavy winter clothes.
Okay, unpack the clothes analogy.
Imagine you grew up in a very cold climate, let's say emotional Antarctica. You had to wear a heavy parka, thick boots, thermal layers just to survive. That is your survival personality.
Okay, so that's the defensiveness, the staying small, the frugality, hiding your emotions.
Yes, all of that. You needed that parka. Without it, you would have frozen to death. It was essential.
But now,
imagine you move to a tropical island. You've done the work, you've changed your environment, you've built a new life. It is 85 degrees and sunny. That is your new life. Success, safety, warmth, connection.
okay, I'm with you.
Is it authentic to keep wearing the parka on the beach?
No, of course not. You'd pass out. You'd be sweating, miserable, and you wouldn't be able to go in the water.
Exactly. Taking off the parka isn't denying your past. It isn't forgetting where you came from. It is simply dressing for the weather you are currently in. Wearing a shirt from high school when you are 40 isn't being authentic. It's just uncomfortable and unflattering.
That is such a good reframing, because we treat our personality like it's our skin, like it's permanent, but really a lot of it is just clothing we put on to handle the weather at the time.
And authenticity is alignment with who you are today, not loyalty to who you used to be. That is the key shift. You have to ask yourself, are you being loyal to a memory, or are you aligned with your present reality?
But there's a comfort in the old clothes, isn't there? Even if they're itchy and too hot. The source mentions the comfort of the negative label.
Oh, absolutely. There is a twisted, perverse comfort in negative self-labels. I'm just not good at this. I'm the messy one. I'm fundamentally bad at relationships.
Why is that comfortable? It sounds objectively terrible.
It absolves us of responsibility. This is the hard truth. If I am just the messy one, I don't have to try to be organized. The expectation is low. I can't fail if the bar's already on the floor. If I am bad with money, I don't have to take the time to learn how to invest or build a real budget.
Sure.
It lets me off the hook. The moment you say, actually, I am a capable, organized adult, you suddenly have to live up to that. You have to perform. The old identity is a hammock. It's a low-hanging, dirty hammock, but you can rest in it without any effort.
So, to get out of the hammock, we need an update process. We need to install the patch, part 5, the update. We can't just talk about this, we have to do something about it. The source suggests starting with an audit.
Yes, you cannot change what you do not measure. The audit is a simple but often brutal exercise. You need to compare the facts versus the feelings.
Walk me through this. I'm sitting down with a notebook. What do I write?
On the left side of the page, you write facts, and you list what you actually do. What is your job title? What problems do you solve daily? What is your actual income? Who relies on you? What have you achieved in the last 24 months? Just cold, hard data, facts that could be proven in a court of law.
Okay. I manage a team of 10. I bought a house last year. I navigated a family crisis last month without yelling. I exercise 3 times a week, that kind of thing.
Perfect. Now, on the right side of the page, you write feelings or internal story. And next to each fact, you write how you feel about it. How do you view yourself in those moments?
So next to I manage a team of 10, am I right? I feel like a fraud who's about to be discovered.
Exactly. Next to I bought a house, you might write, I feel like I'm about to go broke and lose it all. Next to I'm a good parent, you might write, I feel like I'm failing my kids every day.
And then you look at the gap.
You look at the gap. You identify where you are acting out of an old habit rather than your current intent. The goal is to see in black and white that the feelings column is not supported by the facts column. It helps break the spell. You realize, wait, the data doesn't support my insecurity. It forces the logical part of your brain to confront the discrepancy.
Once we see the gap, the source talks about dropping the survival armor. This connects back to the parka analogy.
It does. You have to consciously acknowledge that the war is over. If you grew up in a chaotic home, you might have hypervigilance armor. You were always scanning for danger, for the other shoe to drop. But if your home is now safe and calm, that armor is just weighing you down. It's making you anxious and irritable for no reason.
So you have to actually say it.
You have to consciously say, I am safe now, the threat is gone, I can take this off. It's about recognizing that safety looks different now.
What do you mean?
Safety used to look like hiding, or being quiet, or being a people pleaser. Now, safety might look like speaking up in a meeting. It might look like setting a boundary.
So safety used to be silence. Now safety is clarity.
Exactly. You have to retrain your amygdala, the threat detection part of your brain, to understand that being visible isn't a death sentence anymore. In fact, it's the key to thriving.
So then the source gives us a really specific instruction. Start acting from that place. And they give 2 practical tests for this. The first is the introduction test.
This is a fun one to try, but it takes guts. The next time you meet someone new, a stranger at a party, a new colleague, anyone, pay close attention to how you introduce yourself and what you do.
Do I apologize for it?
Do you qualify it? Do you add it just, I'm just a writer? Do you diminish it? I'm helping out with, I'm trying to start a fin. Or do you state your current reality, simply and clearly? I am a writer. I run this department. I'm an artist.
It's scary to say it flat out like that. It feels arrogant.
It feels arrogant because your survival self thinks being big is dangerous. It thinks it will attract negative attention. But you have to practice stating the fact without the emotional buffer. You don't need to apologize for your own evolution.
The second practical step is about decision-making. This is the one I've been trying to use since I read the source. The question you ask yourself is, would the current year version of me say yes to this, or is the past year version saying yes out of fear?
This is absolutely critical for setting boundaries and managing your energy. Let's say you are asked to do a project at work that is way below your pay grade. Or a friend asks for a favor that would completely drain you.
Okay.
The past version of you, the one who needed to please everyone to survive, the one who was afraid of being fired, would scream, yes, say yes or they won't like us, say yes or we'll be in trouble.
But the current version,
the one who knows their value and has other priorities, looks at their calendar, looks at their strategic goals and says, no, that doesn't align with my priorities right now. You have to pause before you answer and ask, who is answering this question? Is it the intern or is it the CEO?
Is it the intern or the CEO? That's the filter. And the source reminds us at the end, this isn't a one-and-done thing. It's not like you just fix it and you're good forever. It's iterative evolution.
You will never be finished. As you grow and evolve, you'll create new lags. In 5 years, the you of today will be the outdated version you have to shed.
Oh, that's a wild thought.
The goal isn't to reach a final destination of a perfect self. The goal is to shorten the lag time, to get better at noticing the gap, to update the software every 6 months instead of every 6 years.
It's manual maintenance. You have to consciously go into the settings and click update. The system won't do it automatically.
And sometimes you have to quit the application and restart the whole machine. And that's okay too.
This has been heavy, but in a really good way, like a good workout. I want to wrap up by just summarizing the journey we just took for everyone listening.
Let's do it.
We started by identifying the identity lag, that delay between who you've become and who you think you are, like the light from a distant star.
Then we traced it back to its origins in survival mode, the habits and traits that saved us in the past but are now limiting us in the present, the parka on the beach.
We looked at the symptoms, staying small at work, accepting old labels from family, holding on to failures as if they define us.
We debunked the idea that change is fake. It's not fake, it's just dressing for the current weather. Authenticity is aligned with today, not loyalty to yesterday.
And we laid out the update process. Audit the facts versus the feelings, consciously drop the survival armor, and start making decisions and introducing yourself as the person you actually are.
It sounds simple when you listen like that, but it really is the work of a lifetime.
It is.
But it is the most important work you can do. Because if you don't, you are robbing the world, and more importantly, yourself, of the person you have worked so incredibly hard to become.
I want to leave the listener with a final thought. The source kind of implies this question, and I think it's a perfect place to end. It's a thought experiment.
Go for it.
If you met yourself as a stranger today, imagine you walk into a room and you see you standing over by the window, but you don't know your history. You don't know about the failures, the awkward phases, the family drama, the debt from 10 years ago. You just see the person standing there today, how they look, what they have achieved, how they carry themselves. How would you describe that person?
And what would happen if you started treating yourself with the same respect, the same curiosity, the same admiration you would give that stranger?
That's the question. Give that stranger a chance. They might surprise you. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Until next time.
Go update your software. See you next time.
Thanks for spending this time with us on Coffee Break. If this conversation stayed with you, you can find more episodes here on the channel. Until next time, take care.